What's up, guys, and welcome to episode 7 of Skins in the Game, where John and Tim talk about what's going on in the sports world. How you doing today?
Or not going on in the sports world,
Fair enough.
as it were.
Yeah, not a lot going on, that's for sure.
We are scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Well, the big topic of this week is we thought the NBA was coming back. Turns out it might not. So we had a date and everything. We had a plan, which teams were coming back. But now there's players coming back and saying, nope, we should not continue to play basketball. And there's two reasons. One, of course, is COVID-19, the coronavirus. A lot of people have concerns. There's a lot of, basically, they're going to have to go to Orlando and be quarantined from everybody they know. They can't see their family in some cases. They can't see friends or anything like that. Like it's supposed to be, they go there, they play basketball. When they get eliminated, they leave. Till then, they stay. What do you think about that?
Well, to the extent of the quarantining thing, I can understand that. So you said the two things were COVID-19 and the quarantining thing. I thought there had something to do with
Well, there is another one that I'm going to go on. I'll just get your thoughts on that because I think the second part will be more of the topic. But this one, we've already been talking about COVID for a while. But I just thought, like, as far as their actual argument of, like, this would suck that I'm just going to have to sit there in a hotel room. Like, they're apparently getting 3 meals a day at the hotel room, going to the hotel, go to the court, back to the hotel, go to the court, back to the hotel. Like, they're not supposed to go party anytime. They're not supposed to go see family and friends. They're basically going to be in a situation where they are there to play basketball, and that's it for up to potentially, I think, over 3 months.
Well, I'd say this, and you know my position on this whole thing, that I think that is ridiculous that they're that concerned for doing this, but yeah, I would have a problem with saying, no, we basically control your life for 3 months. You're not allowed to, we tell you, we'll feed you, we'll keep you in a hotel, you go play basketball and you come back. And yes, I would have an issue with 3 months of basically being quarantined like a lot of us have been for the last 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so to that extent, and I have to admit, I didn't realize that part of it when I was looking at it, that was part of their complaint. So I would say this, I could understand them saying, we'll play basketball, but you're not going to tell us how to live our lives when we're not playing basketball. And if they're that concerned about them bringing the COVID into the situation, then I can understand that. But my position. I think the whole idea of bringing the COVID in is ridiculous. These are all young, healthy guys that have absolutely nothing to worry about. And that's just my position on it. But yeah, I would have a problem with.
Well, you also have, it's not just the players though, because that's concerned. You have trainers that could be of all ages. You have coaches that could be of elder ages. You have assistant coaches. You have a lot more people in the building other than just the players. I agree. It would be so crazy rare that a 25 to 30-year-old pristine athlete of these calibers would die to this disease. It's not impossible, but it's almost not even worth worrying about. But there are going to be other people on the premises that are not that age. They could be of all ages at this point.
Well, and I understand that. And if there's people that they have, the famous word comorbidities, then they shouldn't be there. But if they're healthy people and you're not talking about somebody that's 75 years old, then I don't think it's that big of a concern. But again, I would have a serious problem with, you're going to come to Miami and you're going to stay at this hotel and you're not allowed to do anything until you get eliminated. That would be,
and
that's pretty extreme.
That is definitely one of the concerns. So the other concern is now the social justice portion. And to go into this is the Nets guard Kyrie Irving has called for players not to come play. George Hill has said that I'm not going to shut up and play ball or shut up and dribble. And then former player Steven Jackson, who's kind of become a face of this movement, and he was apparently also a friend of George Floyd, he says playing basketball is going to do one thing: take all the attention off the task at hand right now. of what we're fighting for. So that's one side basically saying we should not come back and play. It'd be a huge distraction. And but you have other players such as Rocket scarred Austin Rivers that's saying us coming back would put money in all of our pockets, basically to say we could use this money to enact change. We could put money towards causes that we want to put into. We could put money to help families that have been affected by different things. So there's two sides to this coin. What do you think?
Well, and that's what I thought was the primary reason, and that I not putting myself in their shoes, but I just think it's ridiculous that this whole we're fighting for change. And I have my own opinion about it, and I'm not downplaying any time anybody's felt like they've been unfairly treated. But the statistics, if people would actually go look at the statistics, they do not back up the narrative. And the fighting for change, yep, one guy being killed unfairly is horrible. We looked at the video. I actually found the video of the guy in Dallas who happened to be a white guy in 2016 that was killed basically the same way, and it's horrible. And I want to get to the point where we just say that it's horrible because this is an American citizen and they don't deserve to be treated that way. And this whole idea that our system is accepting of that kind of treatment, I think, is absurd. So I don't know what they're fighting for. They're already talking about reforms. The country's on a movement right now to get these things done. So what are the basketball players really adding to it? I could understand if the attitude was, yep, he was killed, too bad, that cop's fine, then I could see all the protesting. But the guy's getting charged with murder. And again, horrible, not downplaying it at all.
Yeah.
But what are the players fighting for? That's what I don't get.
Well, the problem is that there's so many different factions. You don't have one leader saying this is what we're fighting for. There have been some things like Campaign Zero that has a list of reforms to the police that could be enacted that have been statistically shown to lower police brutality in all cases, not just in cop versus black and also white and everything like that. So it's different things that could be enacted that they could say, I've heard the 30 cities we play in, we're not going to play in those cities until you enact these changes that could be put in. But as you said, the problem is that there's no one way to make everyone happy. Like, everybody pretty much wants a lot of different things. Everyone wants the basic things of people not getting killed by police officers, but how we go about that is many different factions in what's going on. But I'm totally with Austin Rivers. How you make these changes is you be the icon, you be on the court, you be what people look up to. You put money in your pocket, you use that money for good in whatever situation that is, and on top of that, you have your platform where people see you. You could still do things like kneel or do things like wear a patch or whatever on your shirt, maybe representing one that says like George Floyd, or like there's many things you could do. And honestly, I think that could even help the movement in a lot of ways, because what they're kind of short-sighted on is the media cycle is short. Like right now, everybody's high on this. It's already starting to wane in some cases. Yep. By July 31st, something else big could happen. Who knows? Like, U.S. could bomb Syria or something, bomb Afghanistan, and then all of a sudden this is gone by the wayside, and nobody cares about this anymore because now we're going into war with another country or something crazy like that. Like, the media cycle is fickle. You don't know where it's going to stay. Like, bringing back basketball probably will help your movement in the long run, because you're actually there in the spotlight. People are following you. They're watching you play basketball, but there's a lot more stuff going on. So even like, I think it's a lose-lose for everything if they don't play.
I agree. Yeah. And I wanted to throw out, and again, not to get too far off track here, but I wanted to throw out some statistics that these are the facts of the statistics. That last year there was 50 million interactions with police officers across this country. 50 of those 50 million, 50 deaths occurred involving unarmed people. 9 of those were black.
Well,
So
just to correct that a little bit, I know which stats you're talking about. Those are actually people being shot by police officers. There's if you include people that died at the hands of police officers, such as George Floyd, it's a little bit higher, but it's still not like it still goes with your narrative. 28 black men were killed and 51 white men were killed out of 50 million.
Okay, so I was I was way off on that. My point
Yeah.
is that I've heard people say that the police are hunting down black people, and it is patently absurd to say that, and that is the problem with this country right now is people don't deal in facts, they deal in feelings. And the feelings are that I get pulled over because I'm black. Well, maybe you do and maybe you don't. I feel like I've gotten pulled over for situations where it's like, okay, I was targeted. You know, I've heard people say that as a black man, you don't understand. When you get pulled over, you put your hands at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. And it's like, I got news for you, buddy. I've done that all my life because the guy's got a gun and I don't want to move. I don't want to do anything sudden that's going to startle the guy. So they can say that we don't know how they feel. That's fine. But don't tell me how I feel. And that's what they do is they basically say, you don't know what it's like to get pulled over by a cop. Well, yes, I do. I've been asked to get out of the vehicle. I've been frisked. I've had all of the things happen to me, and it's not fun. I've been arrested.
I've had to take my socks and shoes off to check my socks and shoes, make sure there's nothing in there, empty my pockets, and like asked to get out of my vehicle because I was acting nervous. There was nothing in my vehicle. There was nothing going on. Like it was crazy. Yeah. There's other.
But that's my point.
Too.
Is look, I am 100% train cops better. Do everything you can to try to get that percentage to zero of unnecessary deaths. I'm 100% behind that. But do not manufacture a crisis that just doesn't exist. And if you want everybody to be in together and let's fight this together to make the police community or the police, whatever, just the police, I guess, then let's do that together. But I just think, like I said, it is being fed by the media. It's believed by a lot of people that blacks are getting killed by cops. And again, they don't even differentiate.
Well, blacks are getting killed by cops, but you're saying they're being hunted down by cops. That's
but this is the thing too. Is okay. So let me, and again, not to get too far into this, but let me give another example.
We have another minute.
Freddie Gray was killed in the back of a van. 3 out of the 5 cops that were dealing with him were black. The police chief of that police department is black. The mayor of that city is black. But they're claiming that there's systemic racism that caused those cops to not care about Freddie Gray. And I would submit they didn't care about Freddie Gray because he was like a career criminal. That they thought of him less than he should. And I would say that is not necessarily because he's black. That's because of who he was, not what he was. And again, to say that that's a sign of systemic racism, it's like, well, all the people in authority there, the overwhelming majority of them are black. So how is that an issue of being a racist? I mean, I guess they're saying.
I hear you.
Yeah. Anyway.
No, I definitely. Yeah, you could definitely go down that road, and it's there's a lot of stuff that you could look into. But just getting back to it a little bit, the point is though is no matter what your side is on this thing, the best thing you could do for your cause is to get in on that court.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, get your money, get your name out there, get your face out there, continue to protest if you want to continue to protest, continue to say what you're going to say. Like 90% of people are with you in a lot of this stuff anyway. There's obviously some things that are take it farther than some people go, but a lot of this stuff, people are on your side anyway. Like, nobody's going to shut you down this time, especially with Colin Kaepernick and everything like that. Get on the court, play basketball, and continue to be somebody that people look up to in all sorts of ways. So let's get back to basketball. But we'll see how that turns out.
I know. We went down a side street a little bit, but that's okay.
It's all good. All right.
I did say we were scraping the bottom, so just to clarify it.
All right. Well, this has also gone ahead and started some more stuff with the Redskins name change. Everybody's talking about how race is such a huge problem in society, and of course, it brings back the Redskins name. It's apparently coming out more, but Dan Snyder wants the stadium in DC. This is something that he truly wants. And the mayor of DC says, basically, change the name first, or it's not happening. And the reason they have to go through the city is because the city pays for the stadium. I don't know if everybody realizes that, but the owners do not pay for the building of the stadiums. The cities build the stadiums, and then the team plays there, because the idea is we are bringing a bunch of people to your city by playing these games. There's a lot more money going through, a lot more tax revenue. So, in theory, Dan could just purchase his own stadium, and then the DC has nothing to say about it. I don't think the DC can stop them from building. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. I don't know.
Well, they could not give them permits.
Yeah,
they could fight it in a lot of ways. I'm just saying.
I wonder, but can they, maybe? But that would be like in the court systems. Dan Snyder probably could fight that and win, especially with Supreme Court rulings that have been in the favor of keeping problematic names in charge, or in whatever. But right now, how he's doing it is DC has complete say over it, because DC's saying we're not paying for it. But if he said he's going to pay for it, I think he would have more of a leg to stand on in the courtroom.
Well, Jack Kent Cooke paid for his stadium in Largo or Landover because Sharon Pratt Kelly wouldn't work with him and was not willing to give him any kind of deal. And he said, "Fine, I'll build my stadium myself outside." And that's, of course, the product we ended up with is not a very good one. But that was Jack Kent Cooke saying, "Fine, you don't want to work with me? I'll build my stadium outside the city." And she was like, "Go ahead," and that's what happened.
Yeah, maybe I'm completely off on that. Maybe even with his own money, he still couldn't get the stadium built in there. But I know that right now, this new stadium are built by the city that they're being put into, not paid by
I would
the
say
owner.
in most cases, yes. But I would say this: I seriously doubt that Jerry World in Dallas was paid for all by Dallas. That was a $1 billion stadium, I think they said, or some ridiculous amount. I don't know what it was exactly.
True. It is also not in downtown Dallas. It's in Arlington, just outside. So maybe he did.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. That's interesting. But we both agreed the name does not have to change. And I want to say this, because I've seen people say this. I am a proud Redskin. It's not a slur to me. Call me a Redskin. I would love to be a Redskin. And what the Washington Redskins have done is change the definition of what Redskins means. Okay? When you hear the term Redskin, you do not think of a Native American walking down the street. You think of a football team. And if somebody says there's Redskins outside, you don't think, why would you call Native Americans like that? You would say, which one? Is it Dwayne Haskins, Terry McLaurin, Brian Kerrigan? Like, who's out there? Which Redskins are out there? Like, you're thinking of the Washington football team when you hear the term Redskins. And this is how you change these words. Okay? You give them a new meaning. You take control of those meanings. And it loses its power of a racial slur or a slur in general. Like, if you try to say, no, you can't say that, that's what gives it more power. And it gives it more ability to hurt your feelings or hurt other people's feelings. You know, I've been taught all my life, obviously my dad's right here, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Like, it's something that we all need to get over because it's just words, okay? And it's not meant to be racist in any way. Us Redskins fans have no ill will to Native Americans or Indians or whatever you want to call them. We're proud to be Redskins. Like, I am a Redskin, and I really wish that people that aren't even Native Americans that would just stop talking about this, because it's not what you think it is. It's not evil. It's not disrespectful. It's nothing of those sorts. A Native American made the Redskins logo. A Native American wrote "Hail to the Redskins." Like it's Native Americans are built in on this team, and it sucks. I really hate that we have to talk about this. It seems like every year. Please get off our backs.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And I know I talked to you about this before, that there's a number of high school teams, but one in particular, and I couldn't find the article today to say what the name of the high school was, but the high school is 98% Native American. It's either on or near some reservation out in the Midwest. I'm sorry, I don't have more detail,
Mm-hmm.
but 98% Native American. Their mascot, Redskins.
Yeah.
So the people that are arguing this and using the classic word offended, what exactly does that mean in your daily life? That how does that stop you from getting through your daily life? That you're offended by something, and when what I believe is a substantial portion of the Native American population are not bothered by it. In fact, I read another article that said that this guy was saying that as a Native American, he's more offended by the chiefs because a chief is a lauded or
Official.
what's the word I'm looking
yeah.
for? No, like elevated. He's a and I can't think of the word right now. Where it's like the fact that call themselves the chiefs, and in the stands there's people that wear headdresses. He said that's offensive to me because what an Indian chief is, more so, or not even more so, but not the Redskins mascot.
Why is he offended? Because when you name a team that, you change the definition. He doesn't want to change that definition. The definition is an Indian chief. They're honorable. They are our leader. Like, they're somebody that we respect. Like, it takes time and effort to earn that title. What you're doing is now changing what it means to be a chief, which we don't want to do in cases that it's a positive around there, right? Like, we don't want to change the definition of saints, if that, or good things. But when it comes to bad things, you could change the definition in a positive way. And that's something that Redskins does. It changes it into a positive way. We are proud to be Redskins. We're proud to be what we are. It's different. It's just different. So, but
yeah, to your point, I don't even think of it as the Redskins as a person. It's a battle, or people going to battle, and like I said, I don't even associate the name, again, to your point, to an actual Native American. It is a football team, and
it's not a football team. It's our football team.
Right. Well,
it's my football team. Back off.
I get your point.
But there is an article out here today that could be interesting to go through. It's ranking the 13 best nicknames to replace the Redskins. And
I say that's an oxymoron. the best and replace is, to me, that anyway.
Yeah. Just look at this different things we have going on here. The Washington Griffins.
Yeah, as in RG3?
Heck no. Okay, absolutely not. And he has them in 4 different categories. Not happening. Okay, absolutely. And that is the epitome of not happening. All right.
Right.
So, the Washington Redhawks. No.
Let me just do the buzzer for each one.
If we were forced to change the name legally, I would like to be called the Skins. I call them the Skins anyway.
That would be the least objectionable. I would agree with you.
Because I already call them the Skins anyway. I talk about the Skins. I would not be... I would be upset if we had to change the name, but this is the one that I would pick, is the Skins. And unfortunately, it's in the not happening category, according to this.
Well, you realize, too, that that would change the cadence of the Hail to the Redskins song, because Hail to the Skins, that doesn't sound the same.
Yeah.
Just saying. That's all the singing I'm going to do, just so you know.
There you go. Thank God. No, I was kidding. So, the Americans, the Washington Americans.
Oh, that we could take over Dallas's supposed standing as America's team.
We are America's team if we're the Americans. Yeah.
Right.
The Hogs, because we have the offensive line. The Washington
I get
Diesel.
that, but no, Diesel doesn't sound right.
The Washington Diesel. The Washington Senators, that was an old baseball team. No thanks. Washington
they
Warriors.
redid the Nationals based on because the Senators were the Nats.
Yeah.
known as the Nats, and the Nationals are known as the Nats. So that's
Yeah.
the
I got you.
association there.
The Washington Warriors, and apparently there's a chance here for the Washington Red Tails
What?
and the Washington Bravehearts. If we have Bravehearts, do we get to keep the logo? I don't know.
I don't know. That's these are really reaching. The
the
Renegades.
The Washington Renegades.
Why don't we deal with the Washington hand grenades?
The Washington Pigskins.
What? Okay, so what's the best move? Let me see the final one.
Probably not a chance, but the best move of all. You ready for this? The Washington Football Club. Eliminate the logo. Eliminate the nickname. If there is no nickname, we are just Washington Football Club. We are the football team from Washington.
I will just say this to end this topic, because I've had about enough of it. Is we have gone down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, yeah. Look. He says it would be trailblazing. No one else does it.
Yeah, that'd be real. That would be real interesting. What kind of gear they would have? Like just.
Do we keep the same gear? He's talking about like the fans who have spent thousands of dollars in the past few decades accumulating Redskins gear. Like, I guess you could just keep all the same stuff. It just won't have literally the Redskins name on it. You keep the same logo. You keep the same colors. You keep the same everything. I don't know.
But you don't understand, Tim. The logo is offensive too, because it depicts a Native American with red skin, and they're going to go after that. If they get the name changed, they're going to go after the next thing, and that's the infamous they. That's what
the infamous
they do.
Yes, that's absolutely right. All right.
But trust me, they need controversy to live. So if they get rid of this one, they're going to find another one, guaranteed.
They need controversy to live.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as you said, that's enough of that nonsense. All right. We are going to move on to the next topic. And I thought this was a kind of a fun article from ESPN. It was the best and worst of the past decade in the NFL. So from 2010 to 2020, what was the best and the worst? And you go through the best team, of course, was the Patriots. I don't think there's any dispute.
It has to be, yeah. No argument there.
The worst team,
like them or hate them,
is Cleveland Browns. They're bad. And then, of course, the best coach would be from the best team, the Patriots, and the worst coach would be from the worst team, Hugh Jackson.
See, I thought those were kind of redundant. It's like, I think if you say the best team and the worst team, it kind of implies the coach is involved in that.
And also, I like how they try to hype him up a little bit with 11, 44, and 1, but that includes what he did at the Raiders, I believe they said, and he started 1 and 31 in Cleveland, and the next season he went 2, 5, and 1. So he finished 3, 36, and 1 as the Cleveland head coach.
So who did they beat? No, that was Detroit that went 1 and 15 and beat the Redskins. Were the only ones they beat, right? When that Detroit?
No. The Detroit went 0 and 16 the one year, and then their first win after the 0 and 16 was us. So they hadn't won like 22 games straight, and then they beat us. No, we actually have beaten the Browns the last few times we've played them. Best free agent signing, I didn't see really a dispute here. I mean, you got a Hall of Fame quarterback who broke records when he got there, went to the Super Bowl twice and won one. So I thought that was legit.
And I'm having a hard time remembering, at what point did he really mess up? He get his neck fused, and that's when he really seemed to lose all the strength in his arms. Was that the last year or the second to the last year?
No, he got his neck fused back in 2011, 2012 when they drafted Andrew Luck. Like, that was the problem. He got his surgery. So he was actually able to get a few more good years in, but by the end of it, his arm was so shot that it was just nerve damage and everything that it was a fluttering duck. It was really bad. This one was interesting. I did not think of Brock Osweiler, and at first I'm like, maybe I could think of one better, but this got me. They signed him to the contract without him ever meeting the head coach.
Right.
$72 million was no joke back in the day. Like, paying somebody $72 million was a decent chunk of change back in 2016.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
he went 15 touchdowns, 60 interceptions before being benched, and then was just gotten rid of. And on top of getting rid of him, in order to get rid of his contract, they had to get rid of a second-round draft pick as well to Cleveland.
Yeah, why do I feel like we had this conversation related to Kirk Cousins at some point when we were having a debate on paying people money, and I'm like, I don't know why I have the
Yeah,
recollection of saying
you don't pay a quarterback a bunch of money off of a 1-year wonder. Like he
right.
beat the Patriots the year before when Peyton Manning got hurt. He won a couple other games. Like he looked like he had a chance to be, and he's like super big. I think he's like 6'5". Excuse me, like 6'6" quarterback. So he looks like the prototypical quarterback, and so that's why they ended up paying him big. Fantasy player, I don't really have a dispute with Antonio Brown. I think he did great. Like when he played up until last year, he was a baller. Worst one, this is a pretty good one. Doug Martin, especially where he was drafted. A lot of people drafted him pretty high when after that rookie season, and consistently he was hurt or just sucked it up for every year after that. But my worst fantasy draft pick, and my friends will laugh at me for saying this, is Corey Davis. Year in and year out, I drafted, this is going to be the year, Corey Davis, from wide receiver from Tennessee. This is going to be his breakout year. He's good. He was a 5th overall pick in 2016, I believe, when they drafted him. Like, this guy is legit, and he's going to play. I draft him every year, and every year he sucks. And he doesn't even get hurt. He just stinks. Like they don't give him the ball, and you can't blame the team because A.J. Brown just got drafted, and A.J. Brown just went crazy last year for Tennessee. So,
by the way, just this category we're in is free agency, right? Not fantasy.
No, it's fantasy player.
Oh, so Peyton Manning was the best fantasy. I thought it said free agent player.
Oh, no, sorry, yeah. The best free agent signing was Peyton Manning.
Okay, I'm sorry. We jumped. I've caught up now. Sorry.
No, you're fine. The best offense, the Patriots. I think like one of the only ones that would contend might be the Saints. For the decade, Saints always had a consistently year in and year out really great offense. Marcus Colston.
What about Green Bay?
Green Bay is another good choice with Aaron Rodgers and everybody like that. I would not be disappointed in that one. I guess the only thing you would say is that Aaron Rodgers has had a couple of injury concerns. I don't know.
Yeah, and I can't argue with the Patriots as the most consistent. They always show up every year and seem to produce. Other than I guess last year was the beginning of the end, but
worst offense was Jacksonville. I mean, you can't argue with the stats. I mean, last in offensive efficiency, 31st in points per game, last in yards per game. I mean, it's hard to beat that.
Well, and I'll say this, that this is a little bit subjective too, that, or I guess subjective is the right word, that, this, or I guess Jacksonville tended to have a pretty good defense this last decade, so it probably wouldn't fit here. But worst offense could also be a product of the fact that your defense can't get off the field and you don't get the ball very much. You know what I'm saying?
But
it's like
so if you say all, but then again, like year in and year out, like this is over a 10-year period. You're lasting all of these.
I get it.
Maybe a season you could blame the defense for being that bad, but when you're consistently that bad, I don't think that necessarily holds water always.
And I guess now that I think about it, that if you're a good offense, then if you get the ball, you score, and the other team gets the ball and they score, then the defense, it doesn't matter what your defense is doing if you keep scoring. So I realize that.
Best defense was the Ravens. I was trying to think maybe the Seahawks had a competitive here.
What about the Broncos?
The Broncos had a couple of years where they were really, really good. With Wade Phillips, but I think they've kind of
not over the whole decade. Yeah,
they had some top tier years.
How about the 49ers? They didn't come along until later.
49ers the last 4 or 5 years or whatever, they've been drafting defensive linemen, and now their defense has come out to be really something special. But there was years there that you did not want to touch the fantasy.
Yeah, I was just trying
defense.
to figure out if there's anybody that I could argue were better than the Ravens, and because I
the one I
don't
thought
like
it was
the
the
Ravens.
Seahawks. Yeah, the one I thought it was the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks had a really really good defense over the years. I'd be curious.
Yeah, the Legion of Boom. Wasn't it the Legion of Boom?
Yep, the Legion of Boom. Yep.
I will say, and just as a real quick aside, I loved what their defense, the Seattle Seahawks, in their prime or their heyday of their defense, that they didn't shift. They didn't do any they basically lined up 11 guys and said, "I got here," and you know what I'm saying? It's like they didn't have any, shift this guy in, do all of it. They just, I line up in my spot and I cover my spot, and you're not going to beat us. And they executed it to perfection.
Right. Raiders were the worst. So this is where I have a dispute. The best game, the 25-point deficit comeback, 28-3 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, how is it? Most exciting game, maybe, but
I don't even
think I agree with you.
I don't even think that's the case.
I mean, I could at least see the argument that the most exciting comeback or the best comeback, but to say that was the best game, no, the Falcons fell apart.
Right. My favorite game was the Patriots versus Kansas City Chiefs, the AFC Championship of 2018. What a game. Just take a look at this real quick. In the fourth quarter, you had Kansas City get the ball, touchdown, 7 minutes and 45 seconds left. 4 minutes later, Patriots score a touchdown. A minute and a half later, Kansas City answers and takes the lead, 28-24. A minute and 20 seconds later, boom, Patriots score and take the lead, 31-28. Then, with 39 seconds left, like 30 seconds after the kickoff, Kansas City gets the ball back, and they get into field goal range to send it into overtime. Whoever had that ball last could not be stopped. Tom Brady versus Pat Mahomes, passing of the torch almost. Like, if Pat Mahomes would have won that, that would have been the passing of the torch of, here you go, you are now the best quarterback in the league. Yeah. I'm old.
Yeah, Tom kind of said, not quite yet, young fella.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, it's amazing. But even, like, it's funny, too. Like, it's a 10-yard run and a 10-yard run, a 2-yard run. So all of these talk about the quarterbacks, and everybody that was scoring was the running backs. Damian Williams, all the touchdowns of the fourth quarter were running backs.
Yeah, but I have a feeling there was a lot of passing to get those run plays in position.
And then Rex Burkhead, again, with a 2-yard run. All the final touchdowns with those two great quarterbacks in the fourth quarter and overtime, you had rushing touchdowns, but you just had great drives and great plays. Like it was a fantastic game to watch. Like,
well, like I said, if your passing game gets you down there, but when you're inside the 5-yard line, passing becomes a lot more difficult because you have the safeties don't have to cover. There's nobody that has to cover deep. You have 7 guys.
Even the touchdown passes were running backs.
Yeah,
a 1-yard TD pass to Damian Williams, like 23-yard pass. That was. I don't remember that play specifically, but I remember watching this game. It was actually in your basement that we were watching that game, and it was a fantastic back and forth affair, going deep. Whereas, like as you said, like the Falcons just fell apart. There was no more Falcons in the Super Bowl.
No, it's like, okay, how stupid do you have to be? If I'm not mistaken, they were inside the 30-yard line, and their quarterback, I can't remember who it is right now, but actually had a play where he was sacked for like a 12-yard loss, I want to say, or something ridiculous. Mm-hmm. I can't remember the exact, but to be well into field goal range and then let yourself get sacked, because if he hits that field goal, the game's over. Mm-hmm. It is, and they get knocked out. I can't remember the exact numbers. I just remember he got sacked for a huge loss, and they're like, you can't do that. And
right.
So yeah, that was not a. I agree with you. Something where both teams are at the top of their game and they're going back and forth, and it's like this is a shootout, and two teams that are great on offense just were going at each other, and the defenses were just they had their hands full. That's an exciting game. To have one team completely fall apart and have another team come back that's not. I would not classify
another game that you could say that wasn't as big as far as a playoff game, but another game you could talk about was the Chiefs-Rams, where it was that 54-51 game or something crazy. There was a bunch of turnovers in that game too, though. Like defensive touchdowns, that game was all over the place. I think they said Pat Mahomes had like 5 turnovers that game. So that's even, and I think Jared Goff had a couple turnovers too. So that was not a perfect game by any stretch, but still high scoring, a battle to the finish, like last second win. Like this one was, but this one was one of my favorites. I just remember watching this live, thinking like that was a really, really good football game.
Yeah.
And then the rest is just kind of like some random stuff. Like you could talk about like the biggest change was the stuff with the concussions. Best player Tom Brady. But there's a couple things they didn't bring up that I thought were interesting, which was the best draft pick and the worst draft pick. Did you look into or have any thoughts of which ones you thought?
I didn't really get a chance to look into. I would have to say the best draft pick, if I had to, would lean towards one of the defensive greats, whether it's Mack
Miller,
or
Khalil Mack.
Miller.
I think the best draft pick, hands down, in my opinion, is Russell Wilson. You got him in the 3rd round. He's an all-time
that's a
great.
Good point. I didn't think about that.
It's Russell Wilson, in my opinion, is hands down the best draft pick in the 2010s. You got him in 2012. He went to the playoffs his first year. He's been a Super Bowl. No, not a Super Bowl MVP. He won the Super Bowl. Bobby Wagner won that Super Bowl MVP. But he's gone to another Super Bowl. He's on to, because they beat the Broncos and lost to the Patriots. But they're consistently year in and year out good. I like Russell Wilson.
That's the funny thing. I wouldn't have guessed. If you'd asked me when was he drafted, I would not have. I would have thought he was in the league longer than RG3.
Nope, the same year. Him,
That's
Andrew
what I'm
Luck,
saying.
and Andrew Luck and Robert Griffin III were all 3, and I think there was one more that was in that conversation, wasn't there? Maybe not. Anyway, those 3, those were like the big rookie breakouts that year. But 3rd round, 75th pick, hands down. Now the worst draft pick. I think this is funny. It's fantastic. It is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting Robert Aguayo. I don't even remember how to say his name. Kicker. They drafted him in the 2nd round, 59th pick. Okay? But not only that, they traded up to get him. So they traded their 3rd round and 4th round to go up and get the Robert Aguayo from, I believe it was, from Florida State University. And then on top of that, look at his stats. His career was, it was 22 of 31 on field goals his first year. He then gets benched. They don't want him. And the preseason, he misses a 47-yard field goal and an extra point. And I think that was before they moved the extra point back. I think he just missed a short extra point.
And that's the equivalent to somebody that playing fantasy football and drafts a kicker on the 3rd pick.
It's not only that, but somehow in fantasy football you traded up to go get him. It's the worst. By the way,
I would argue.
History.
I do have, and this is, a lot of people think this is crazy, but one could argue that Andrew Luck was a huge bust. I know he had a lot of upside, and he was potentially great, and he had a lot of skills, and he did some good things, but he ended up being injured for how many years where he just couldn't play, and then he ends up retiring. So they burned a 1st-round pick in 2012, and what did it get him? Not really a whole lot. Yeah, maybe one playoff victory.
I don't know. I know that he had the one over Kansas City, that comeback win.
But I'm just saying.
I disagree with you on this. He was a fantastic player. It sucks that he got injured a couple of times and a few times, and then he had no offensive line to speak of. The Colts did not build a team around him whatsoever. They didn't start drafting O-line until basically at the end of his career. He was a fantastic player. Year in and year out, he was up near the top 5 in statistical categories. They had a gem in Andrew Luck. The dude was a beast. They did not make the wrong decision drafting him in the 1st round. It is a fantastic player to have. But I know that you feel as though that basically you think he's overhyped from where, when people talk about him.
No, ultimately I look at what you get out of a player. and I just felt like he was injured. How many years since 2012 where he couldn't play? He played a little bit, got hurt, played a little. It's not a lot different than and right now Jordan Reed with the tight end where when he was on the field he was great, but how would you deem this? What was Jordan Reed to the Redskins? Was he a success? I would say he wasn't because he couldn't stay on the field. He didn't. He missed way too many games. You couldn't rely on him, and they kept hoping that this year would be the year. I'm hoping that Darius Geis isn't the same type of thing where, yeah, he looks when he's on the field, it's like, oh my God, he looks great, but he couldn't stay on the field, and they end up, if they end up dealing with him like they did with Jordan Reed for how many years, and then finally like, okay, we got to let him go because he's, he's just not playing, and I guess, and maybe I'm not saying that it's exactly the same, but maybe the argument is, yeah, Andrew Luck might have had a lot of upside, but he couldn't stay on the field, and maybe that's the fault of the Colts because they didn't give him any protection and he was getting his butt kicked. I don't know, but
That's what I think, but I was just curious what his um his playoffs were like postseason. He went 4-4, so he won 4 games, lost 4.
which sounds right. Unless you win the Super Bowl, then you're going to be,
Yeah,
I mean, you're going to have at least one loss in every one. You know,
yeah,
every playoffs you get to that you don't.
yeah. He went
So
to the
apparently
playoffs 4 times.
he won
And
one game and lost one game in the 4 times or
on
yeah
average,
in the 4 times
the first time he
yeah
lost the first game. The next one they went 1-1. The next time he went to the actually I don't know, but he won 2, lost 1, and then the final year in 2018 he went 1-1.
and I'll give it to you. Maybe that's not a great example. I just think that.
Yeah,
And maybe you're right. Maybe it's more of a hype thing that he was supposed to be a generational quarterback, and it just didn't work out that way.
correct. Yeah, unfortunately he did not stay healthy. I was saying the whole time if he stayed healthy, he could be considered the best of all time, but unfortunately he did not stay healthy.
Would you still say that after seeing what Patrick Mahomes can do?
No, Pat Mahomes right now is hands down the best quarterback.
No, I'm just saying. I know that, but I'm just saying.
At the time, I thought that that's what the conversation was. But no, I love Pat Mahomes. Okay. That was fun. All right, on to the next topic. We're going to move into a nice Redskins topic here. And it is something that you found was Doug Williams. They're making a movie around him. It's called a biopic or a biopic, however you want to say it. But
biopic, yeah.
I was kind of more thinking biopic though, because it's like a biography, but in picture form. So right, I guess that's the idea, or like in video form. So it's not like an actual biography, but it's a film version, I guess.
Yeah, it's pronounced biopic, but you're right. It's basically a biography in video.
Yep. So this is being produced by Will Parker Productions, and it comes at a time where there's a lot of talk about racial injustice and a lot about racism, and I think this is a great example to show of like somebody that really went through some crap, went through a time where black quarterbacks were not really a thing. They were not supposed to be quarterbacks. They were inferior and they could not play the quarterback position, and he basically came in and said, well, look at me now. And I think it's a great pick. But you grew up in that time. You watched him win the Super Bowl, and you told me about this film. So what do you think about what's going on here?
Well, and let me say, and I'd be interested to watch it. And I'll be honest with you, I was 23 years old in '87, so I do recall exactly where I was watching that second quarter against Denver. It was at the end of the first quarter. We were down 10-0, and it was like, oh, here we go. And then to just it was something ridiculous, like 11 plays. I want to say it was maybe even less than that they scored 35 points in like 11 plays. It was like one 50-yard plus gain after the other, and it was just like every time you turned around, they were scoring. But in absolute, to be completely honest, and I never, and I'm sure I was naive and didn't understand, but I never looked at Doug Williams as anything other than the Redskins quarterback, and there was never any feeling or anybody that I talked to that I recall where it's like, oh, he's a black quarterback. What do you think about that? So in hindsight, I know that was the conversation, but I all I know is they had one of the most magical quarters ever. That was just everything they did. Timmy, I can't think of his
Smith.
last name, the running back.
Timmy Smith.
Even he got like yes, Timmy Smith. You're right. Got like a 50-yard touchdown run. It was just oh, here's a pass, touchdown. Oh, here's another pass, touchdown. Oh, let's run a couple. I swear I want to say it was like 11 plays
Yeah.
to get 35 points, and it was exciting. And I did not realize also the trailblazing or the firsts that Doug Williams had being the first African American quarterback drafted in the first round. I didn't realize that until I read up on this once I heard about this movie. And
Which,
the
to
record
be fair,
he set,
was drafted by, I believe they said, the Buccaneers. He wasn't drafted
Yes.
by the Redskins, so
that is correct.
you would have probably heard a lot more about it if he was actually drafted by the Redskins instead of.
Yeah, he actually played with the Buccaneers for 3 years, I think it was, and then whatever ended up happening about contract or whatever, he left and went to the USFL for a couple of years, and then ended up getting picked up by the Redskins and got back into the NFL. But yeah, he actually left the NFL for a couple of years, and and to think this is funny how different the times are too. That he had set a passing record for a Super Bowl with I think it was 340 yards. That and he had 4 touchdowns, and of course he was the MVP. But yeah, to think that the passing record at that time in the Super Bowl was 340 yards, and I'm thinking it's got to be upwards of I don't know what the total is now, but
I think Tom Brady almost threw 500 yards in a loss.
I was going to say that I think it's got to be over 500, but I hesitated saying that because I wasn't sure. But
like,
yeah, that's how
against
much,
the Eagles, he threw like some astronomical number and still lost.
Yeah, but I'm telling you right now, I want to say that Doug Williams probably had somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 to 250 yards in that second quarter. It was, I mean, there was a 70-yard bomb, there was a 60-yard. I don't know the exact numbers, but it was like I said, 5 touchdowns, 4.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they start out 10-0. They end up winning 42-10. Denver at the time was a good. Obviously they made it to the Super Bowl, so they were good. But it was like, okay, now, and the nice part about it is the Redskins were good back then too.
Mm-hmm.
But this was like, okay, this is Denver. This is going to be a
yeah, John
really
Elway was there.
Yeah, exactly. And to have them come out and go up 10-0, and then, like I said, the air comes out of your sails a little bit, and then they just in the second quarter, it was like, okay, they flipped the switch or turned on the faucet, and it was like left them in the rear view mirror.
Do you have a preference of who should star as Doug Williams?
No, I know, and we talked about this too. I know he said that a lot of people were saying Denzel Washington. I could see that, although I thought it was interesting that he said Jamie Foxx.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I don't necessarily, I mean, I think Denzel's got the right stature, but if you listen to Doug Williams talk, Doug Williams is just a good old boy, a little Southern, and you listen to Denzel Washington talk, and he's very serious, and I don't know. Like I said, you listen to Doug Williams talk, and he sounds like I don't know. He always sounds like
a classic. I think this is a classic Michael B. Jordan role.
Okay.
From the Black Panther, like that, the villain in the Black Panther. I think this is a classic Michael B. Jordan. I think that he'd play a great Doug Williams. I saw him in Friday Night Lights. Like I think he would be a fantastic pick to star as Doug Williams, because you got to have a younger guy. Denzel Washington's kind of old. You're not going to put him in a football uniform when he's 20, 22, 23 years old, or whatever it is. Like
yeah, that's a good point. And Jamie Foxx, for that matter, you wouldn't do that. I mean, Jamie's getting up there too. So you're right. They got to find somebody younger. And I don't know. I think that was just a conversation they kind of, caught Doug Williams on there. They were interviewing him, whatever, and say, "Who?
I know who they could. I know who they could do it. Let's pick
what?
Zac Efron.
Yeah.
Let's pick a white dude to play the first black quarterback to win the Super Bowl.
What, are you going to have him in blackface?
What a brilliant idea. No, that would just cause so much uproar.
No, that's what I was saying. Do that and then have him dress up in blackface.
My God. Dress him in blackface in 2020 to play the first black quarterback to win the Super Bowl. Oh,
we'd have more riots.
Oh. See, it's just fun to laugh. Okay, that's funny. Obviously, I'm joking. As I said, Michael B. Jordan would be great, but I think that's just funny to think of. Yeah, let's put a white guy in there to represent the first black quarterback to ever play, to ever win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, go ahead and stir the pot a little bit.
Yeah, that's. I just thought about that right now. That's awesome. I think that's hilarious. But anyway, that was fun. Good old Doug Williams. I definitely will watch it if it. I guess when it comes out, I think it's definitely going to happen.
Yeah, it's in the very. They just signed the deal. The guy got the exclusive rights to do it. I don't think they've done any planning, or I don't think anything started. But yeah, I believe it's going to happen.
Alrighty.
All right, so here we go back to your favorite thing to do, which I think is
Redskins roster 2020. Yeah, well, especially who I have picked here. It could be a surprise to many. We are going to the Redskins O-line. Usually I go with the Redskins website, but the O-line's kind of funny. You can't filter them all out because tackle and center and guard are all different letters. But
I know they all should start with O, and then I was saying the same thing there. It's like, really, I can't group them together. It's
Yep. So I went ahead and just made a little WordPad thing to put them in here just so we could have them all listed out. So,
all right, I want you to tell me what you got, and I will critique what you, because I have some opinions, but it's a crapshoot in some of the places. So,
all right, so I did what I usually do. I went back and I looked at how many O-linemen that Ron Rivera kept in the past, and it's a mix. He kept sometimes 9 and sometimes 10, which is pretty standard to keep one of those two. 8 is usually definitely you want to keep more than 8 with injuries and everything. So it's interesting here what's going on. So what I have, I have 9 total because I had 6 receivers, 5 running backs, 3 tight ends, 2 quarterbacks, and usually you want to have 25 on offense, 25 on defense, and the 3 special teamers, the long snapper, the kicker, and the punter. So to get to that 25, I would have 9 offensive linemen. Okay. So here are my 9 offensive linemen. I'm going to start with the bench players and then move to the starters. So I have Sadiq Charles as a backup tackle. I have Wes Martin being kept. I think he's pretty good to be kept as a backup guard. I have Keith Ishmael to be the backup center. And I have Ross Piersbacher because he can play center and guard. So I think he's a good backup to have. He has some versatility, and he's another draft pick that we have.
Right. So Sadiq Charles, that's the guy they drafted that had the issue at school and.
Yes, the LSU guy.
Yeah. So I think that makes sense that he's a backup because he has potential to be good, but obviously in the first year, you probably don't want to throw him to the wolves at left tackle or Dwayne Haskins for that matter.
Left tackle is going to be the last player I said, and this is why I don't think Sadiq Charles will start. But I'll go up the starters. So that was my 4 backups. Now my 5 starters, and I'll start with the right tackle, is Morgan Moses, of course, and Brandon Scherf. I think they'll
so you're hoping Morgan Moses bounces back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see a clear replacement for him, and I don't necessarily think he's bad. I just think he just freaking commits too many dang penalties.
Yeah,
and
I know.
Let's see if Ron Rivera can get him out of that habit or not. But he needs to quit false starting and holding people. So, and I would not be disappointed to see somebody else starting ahead of him. But I just don't see it this year. I think this might be a next year thing. So,
all right. Well, just so you know, I'm with you on Morgan Moses and Wes Martin. Because that's about as far as I went as who I thought was going to start. I didn't necessarily wean anybody.
Brandon Scherf.
Brandon Scherf. Yeah, I'm sorry, said the wrong, but yes.
All right. I think Chase Roullier will continue to be the starting center. I think he'll win his job back. He has the experience. And then we went and got Wes Switzer, the guard from Atlanta. I think he will, with the experience as well. A lot of the players behind him are young. They're up and coming. They're gonna have to be developed. So I think Wes Switzer will be the guard.
Left guard, right? We're on the left
yes,
side now.
Left guard. Yep. The starting left tackle for the Washington Redskins in 2020 is going to be not a guy from this roster right now. We are going to go sign Jason Peters to a 1-year deal because it makes sense.
Is that the guy you were saying that's like 38 or something?
Yeah, he's old, like 37 years old or something along those lines. We need him for a 1-year deal. It makes sense. We do not have a developed left tackle at this time. You have to protect Dwayne Haskins' backside in a huge development year, his second year. We do not want this kid to be put on his horse all game.
What about Cornelius?
Cornelius, Lucas. No, I don't. I mean, maybe he ends up with the starting, but I did not have him.
I just didn't know. Actually, one of the reasons, and it's kind of like not necessarily related to that, but one of the reasons why he stood out is a left tackle that's 6'8".
6'8", 328. That's a big.
Is that good? Is being tall? I'm not. I guess if you're tall, you're gonna have a huge reach.
Yeah, the big thing with the tackles are their reach, as just like what you said, because you want them to be able to reach and grab those quick DNs that are trying to get around them. And the big part of it is that when they try to get around the edge, they have big long arms to push them around the quarterback to give that quarterback a nice pocket to sit into. So when you have that as long arms, you can push them out.
Right, but what the reason why I was actually looking at hogshaven.com and was reading about this earlier, just how the article they wrote saying everybody thinks the Redskins' offensive line is going to be terrible. Here's why it won't. And one of the things that they were doing was rating quarterbacks. The PFF, the
Pro Football Focus.
Power, that basically they were saying that Cornelius was the most experienced of who we got and was better ranked than Morgan Moses and Donald Penn, who actually had a decent year last year. So that's kind of the reason why I was wondering about Cornelius. That
I hope he takes that starting spot from Morgan Moses, and maybe he would be. If we don't go get Jason Peters, that's probably who will be on the team. I also had Jerron Christian fighting for that spot. He is a draft pick. He's got some experience under his belt. But yeah, maybe
Sorry, you're actually like matrixing right now. I'm not sure if it's my end or yours, but that last thing you said, you broke up a little bit. But
can you hear me now?
I got the general gist. Yeah, I got the general gist of what you were saying though.
I got you. Yeah, it looks like.
But that was the only reason. Like I said, he jumped out as being 6'8" and having experience. And if I understand what you're saying, is get somebody that's got a lot of experience, because that is definitely the critical spot, and you don't want Dwayne Haskins running for his life every play if the left tackle can't do what they're doing, So if I understand your reasoning behind getting him, but short of doing that, if they don't, I'd be interested to see what this guy can do, because he's apparently a very big weight-wise and big height-wise. But I'm thinking at 6'8", 328 pounds is not going to look as big as a lot of other guys. You know what I'm saying?
Because he's so tall. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going
to be a big boy. But you're right. He can carry it well comparatively.
Yeah.
But awesome. Yeah, it looks like Discord's starting to act up a little bit. But it's all right. We're at the end of the show. It was a fun episode 7. We went through some good stuff. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for sticking around to the end. If you have any comments, please leave them below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and watch the snippets. Share with your friends. Share it on Facebook. We're trying to grow a little bit of an audience. We're doing pretty good so far. We're having fun, and that'll be it. Any last words?
Nope. It was a lot of fun. We found some fiery things to talk about, even though the sports world is all but dead. But I look forward to the next time.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. See ya.